We finished the helmet last time, right? Looks fantastic. Now it needs a stand. That's what we're going to do this time, is we're going to get the stand done. I've got everything printed, so it should just be a matter of putting things together, sanding things off, a little bit of paint, a little bit of finish. That should be it. Let's see. Let me pull you in so you can see what we're working with. There are days I swear there's something completely wrong with me. I've been obsessed with MOSPEADA probably my entire life. At least all of it that I can remember. I've loved the thought of the motorcycle that turns into power armor, and it was just, it hit at just the right time. I had this little guy, right? I'm using him a lot to build the actual armor itself. That, and then this guy. This guy's kind of neat. But, so like I said, I've modeled this whole thing from scratch. And so yeah, it does this, which is when you first see it at in episode 1 when Scott, or Stick, or whatever you want to call him, lands and he pulls out this thing, and it's this, and then this converts into this motorcycle. It was fascinating to me, just the mechanics behind it. So I of course modeled the whole thing, and yes, all the pieces can be in a motorcycle configuration or in armor. It does exactly what this does, but I don't have hinge points everywhere. It's not going to actually be able to transform, but I want it to look as if it could, so I wanted everything to be scaled properly. I also printed up a helmet stand. I printed it in 2 pieces, dowels in between. There it goes. But my print is a little off here, right? I'm just going to sand that down till it's smooth. Same with up here. And then I wanted something a little wispy because I was thinking about doing LEDs. So I wanted something thin. I haven't decided yet. I don't know. Because this, I made a stand. Goes like right here. And then the motorcycle itself is going to go inside here, wherever looks best. So the whole thing's going to be painted, kind of like what I did with the Veritex. But, first step, I'm getting ahead of myself. Like I said, I printed a little one, and I didn't like it. This is too long, so if you look at the proportions are just slightly different. So I printed a bigger one, and it didn't look quite right either. And it kind of failed at one point. But it's a subtle difference between the two of them, right? But the scaling is completely different, and I've gone frame by frame in a lot of this anime just to get everything exactly where I'm happy with it. And I think I'm finally there. So, first step, I'm going to take these off, is to glue these 2 halves together, and then I'm going to sand everything flush. So I basically just took the same helmet stand I used for the Valkyries, and I simplified it a little bit along here. I got rid of these diamonds that were just not good. When I do the Valkyrie ones again, I'm gonna get rid of most of this because there's a lot of negative space here. It doesn't need to be. But first thing we're gonna do is glue in these dowels. A little bit of super glue, or CA glue, or just in this case it's Gorilla Glue. I'm gonna put a lot of glue down. The fact that I know it's not going to properly fit makes my life a bit easier because I don't have to be as exact. And then I got to clamp. And I'm just going to clamp it from underneath to keep everything together while it dries. In fact, I'm not even going to use the clamp part of it. I'm just going to use that part. Try and line it up as best I can. And then we just leave it be. Probably give this a couple of hours. Go cool off in a bedroom for a bit. Yeah, cool off. That's not going to happen. We just move on to the next step. So I printed these out. They're a little more wispy. I wanted them to look a little more organic, and they bend, so I don't have to be 100% exact. But because it's organic, I've got a support material everywhere that I need to just peel off or grind off, which is what I'm going to do here, using a rotary tool and a sanding drum. Let's go over the whole thing. It's going to be loud. Probably going to time lapse this. I'm probably going to time lapse this. So, on with the show. My favorite part, of course, glazing putty. That's it for tonight. I rode through a bunch of my gloves. Not really in the mood for anything else. It's hot. I'm gonna let everything cool off for a bit. But this needs to dry anyway. This is smooth. I'm gonna try and get a little smoother. Second coat of glazing putty should take care of that. And I need to get a table that doesn't squeak. The smoother your whatever it is your glazing gets, the longer the littlest a bit goes, right? Because you're filling in considerably less each time. Since I'm here. In fact, let me move you over so you can see what I'm doing a little easier. Everything is at time to dry, so we're going to do a light sanding and see where we're at. We should be pretty close to putting everything together. Stand is sanded as much as I need it to be. Arms are sanded. Everything needs to get primed now. We're at that stage. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to put everything together and I'm going to mark on the helmet where these arms rest. I'm going to line the helmet in this thick foam like I did with the Robotech helmets, and I want this, the arms itself, to rest inside the foam. So I'm going to use super thin stuff for that. So first thing I'm going to do, wash my hands. I don't want to get Bondo all over that nice white helmet. All right, now I gently pick it up. So like I said, I'm going to mark it. I'm going to put it exactly where I want it to be, and then I'm going to mark it with Sharpie on the inside. Show you what the inside looks like. So it might be a little hard to see. I got a clamp light back here that I'm shining on it. There we go. But all along those edges, That's where the arms lay, and then there's that little gap in between. I want to make sure that I put the thinner foam in these sections, primarily because it folds better, and I want the foam itself to hold the arms in place. I also want to make sure that I have thicker foam along this brow ridge here, because it's going to be slightly visible, and I want it to look like the whole thing is properly padded. But we are now at the everything gets primed stage. This is my little guy. This is the closest color I could get to match. It's a 2x. I am not fond of 2x paint, but you know, it is what it is, right? So I want to paint the base in that green. And then for these, the little clippy clips, they're supposed to be silver. We're gonna do a graphite treatment on them. Should be interesting. I've done it a couple of times. We'll do one more just to show you, what I do. But this also needs to be painted, but this has a lot of masking. And it's just basically, it's almost all green. There's a little white here, and then the tires. So it should be pretty easy. I may end up just painting the whole thing this green, and then using acrylic, or maybe a testers on the tires. I don't know yet. I don't know. The rest of the base, the arms, I'm doing in a flat black. These things, I absolutely hate these things. They do not work very well. Hold on, I'll be right back. I hate them with a passion. They don't work well. But, entertainingly, you pop it off. It's just a normal spray tip. I have a bunch of extras. I'm just going to put a regular spray on it and then spray. Flat black, graphite, and then green. That's what we're doing now. We're going to start with the green. The helmet covers most of this, so I'm not going to tape anything. I'm just going to hit it with spray. Put a mask on and get to work. Alright, a couple things are about to happen real quick. First, I'm going to do a very light dusting of the silver over the clips. So I'm just going to give these a very light dusting on the top. That puts kind of a silver hue up here. Then, this is the worst clear I've ever used. It's horrible and it takes forever to dry. I'm going to use that to our advantage. I'm going to coat both of these in this clear. Then I'm going to dust them with graphite powder and use a chip brush. It's a chip brush. It's just a cheap brush. They're at Menards. You need cheap brushes. You will destroy this brush. There's no cleaning it from this point on. So cover the whole thing in graphite powder and lightly dust. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other one. We're going to do them one at a time, so I can kind of focus. The light dusting makes all of the highlights silver, leaves all of the recesses dark. This doesn't really have recesses, but it's the same thing. You get what I'm doing. And then the dusting leaves the graphite powder a little heavier on the inside corners. It adds more of an antique look to it, but it still gives us this amazing finish. I spray the clear down and then put the graphite powder on. So it kind of embeds itself, like cold casting. Cold casting is the exact same thing. You put the powders in the mold, then you pour the resin in, and it embeds it on the outside. So that's just what we're doing here, but without the mold. All right, before we get into it, let's show you a little bit of the supplies. Just standard graphite powder, chip brush. I tend to do this over a tray, so I can collect the graphite powder after the fact. This is what it does to brushes. there's no way I can use this for anything but this. But since I'm going to destroy it, use a brand new chip brush. So we're going to do them, like I said, one at a time. Dump a bunch of graphite powder. Normally I do this for like a gun, so I have something to hold. I'm probably going to have to do it over this mat and then hope I can collect some of it. Proper PPE. So that's it. We let everything dry, and then we brush it off, and it gives a very nice sheen. The finish is fantastic. You have to excuse me. It's 8 million degrees out, and I'm in an enclosed shop. But we let everything dry overnight. Tomorrow should just be assembly, maybe a little finishing paint on the motorcycle. But other than that, we'll also have to do foam. And then there's... Okay, so we got a bit to go, but we're getting closer. It's had time to dry. This is what it looks like. A little bit of steel or Scotch-Brite. Okay, be careful you don't want to over buff it and buff it off, but it can absolutely get smooth. I didn't use the finest grade of powder here, so I got a little bit of clumps. But in this situation, I think it'll add. All I'm doing is wiping off all the excess. A little bit of steel wool. And this can just be super, super polished. But it's not going to come off. We're on to foam. First, check this out. I really like how that turned out. That's neat. Since we got to take a second, I just cut a small piece of acrylic that I'm going to hot glue right there. This is solely just to bind these two pieces together, and will be 100% hidden, so I'm not worried about it. I have them split like this. Originally, I was thinking about running an LED. I think that's gilding the lily. That's a little too much. And they print better, so I can print them flat. I don't have to worry about, you know, anything weird going on. So we let that be. Everything's turning out way better than I thought. I'm pretty happy with that. Geez Louise. This is going to be real hard to try and explain what I'm doing, because it's inside of a helmet. So I'm going to pull you around so you at least have the same view, or a similar view to me, and we'll take it from there. So I've got all this lined up. Let's make sure, you know what, if we have tools, we should be a tool using creature, right? I'm going to measure it. So I want it to go flush at the end. which puts me right just under 19 inches. And this is 18 inches. They could probably work. At its widest, which I believe is the base, we're looking at probably 5.5. We take our foam. It said 5.5. We will mark it at 5.5. And at the top, we are 3. So for 5.5 down at the bottom and 3 at the top, it's 1.25 inches on either side. 5.5. At least close enough to it. So instead of fighting with this entire big piece, I'm just cutting the piece off we need. I could use a utility knife. Then I'd have to lay down a cutting board, and I'm not in the mood for that. Which is really silly because I'm going to need it in a minute anyway. All I'm going to do, and you're not going to watch most of this because there is absolutely no point in that. I'm just going to mark where everything is. I'm going to lay it in place, and push it as flat as I can, and then try and outline what's already there. So, you know, I'm going to peek under the line here. Just a couple of quick lines gets us this, which is roughly the shape I need. I'm going to cut halfway, cut it off, flip it over, do the same thing. I'm going to flip over, do the exact same thing. Again, this is just the lining for a statue. It's nothing super critical. I may do just a hair of a reveal underneath. Since I didn't say on the inside, it's actually kind of difficult to move stuff around because, you know, but gives you a rough idea, right? And we're just going to do the same thing for the top. All right, just a couple problems. Cut a little too short. Not a big deal. I'll put another piece in because I kind of want to, I think I may have widened it when I added the acrylic piece, so we'll just do the same thing. I'm going to start by gluing these pieces in. I'm going to hot glue it, and I'm going to start at the front and work my way back since there's a little bit of a gap. And I work little sections at a time. So now we're going to do something very similar. We're going to take the thicker foam and trace this ear cup. 5 3/4, 3.5. Look at that. That fits really nicely. Now I'm going to take this, flip it over, trace it on another piece, and then use it. Use this one on the other side. That way, all the markers on the inside. This is just fabric that I picked, or foam that I picked up at Joann, or Michael's. It was Michael's. I would have used HD foam because I thought that would be an interesting experiment with this stuff, but my Blick does not carry it. It's the only reason I didn't use it. Glue on the outside. All right, so it's a little bit of a gap right here. Let's try putting that so you're in frame. There is a little bit of a gap right here. That's not a big deal. The whole thing gets covered with the arm, but I'm just gonna put in a small little strip. That just means I wasn't perfectly centered. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way up, right? On the top brow here, I'm going to do one strip all along, one solid continuous piece. But other than that, I'm just going to keep going 1.5 inches at a time, slowly working my way up. So here it is. It's real hard to see. I've got some gaps where the foam doesn't quite meet. I just hit it with some spray paint. I know you're not supposed to paint foam, but the aerosol in the paint causes the certain foams to melt a little bit. It's a lining that goes inside of a stand. I ain't worried about it. This I am happy with. I just need to do touch-up paint. Just a couple of areas. It's pretty easy. Little bits of whites here and there. I'll probably start with the white, then go to the black. So I'm using this stupid little toy. And that's going to be the basis. That's my my reference. Just using some white. Should have gloves on, but I do not. It's going to be an interesting costume to make. But honestly, that alone makes a huge difference. So I'm just going to keep going. There's a couple of spots that need to be painted. It's just easier to do it with a brush than it's to try and tape everything off except for that little spot and paint it white. So nobody but me is really ever going to see it from the side because it sits farther back in the helmet. But I'm still trying to do a good job. I think we may be ready to put everything together. It's a little terrifying, but you know, here we are. I'm going to start with the helmet and the visor. This really does just slide right on. Once it's on, it does not want to come off. I mean, it's snug. 2 back pieces. And put the 2 back pieces on after it's in place. Look at that. Couldn't really ask for better. That fits so perfect. No wobble, no movement. All right. I believe it goes this way. Good. The other one. That is also good. Look at that. That looks fantastic. All right. Now for the base. Base is a little harder, so I'm going to glue it and then put it in place. So I'm going to have to kind of go by feel on this one. That is going nowhere. And the last piece. Let the glue gun heat up just a little more. The last one was a little difficult. neat. This thing turned out perfect. I absolutely love it. I mean, there's nothing about this that I do not enjoy. It's pretty neat. Everything looks perfect. It's just so. I left off the numbers on the sides. I left this plate open. Those are intentional. There were a couple of these helmets. I don't want to presume to know where they're going, so we'll leave that off for now. But it looks fantastic. I'm super happy with it, and I'm glad, even though the visor was off and there were a couple things I didn't like about it, I still went to the end. I finished the whole project, and doing so just it taught me more about the process for next time. If you fail at the beginning, just keep going so you can find out any other mistakes. And I've learned a lot. And I love this, and the next one's going to come out perfect. That's for a later date. That's all we got here. So, if you enjoyed this video, A, thanks for making it to the end. B, something about sharing or commenting or liking, you know, the usuals. I'm not going to say subscribe, because you should have been here by now. I'm not going to say subscribe, because you should have already by now. But I do all kinds of stuff like this all the time. And this is your jam. This is my jam. Let's jam together. Hope I see you next time.